your favorite desserts, and these are high protein variants of the same desserts. Interesting, but do they actually taste good? If you're anything like me, you probably save every single recipe that pops up on your feed, except you never actually try them. Well, today, I'm finally gonna test every high protein dessert I've ever saved and ranking them by difficulty, protein content, and taste to see which ones are actually worth making and which ones to avoid. And for our first official recipe, we have gooey protein brownies. Apparently this viral recipe gives you gooey brownies versus the typical protein brownies that are drier than the Sahara Desert. For the recipe, I first combined the dry ingredients, 70 grams of self-raising flour, 300 grams of granulated sugar, 30 grams of cocoa powder, and 60 grams of chocolate protein powder. I then incorporated the ingredients. I don't know why I did that. Then started adding the wet ones. 4 large eggs sifted, plain Greek yogurt, and 60 milliliters of melted coconut oil. Finally, I poured into a baking pan that I may or may not have spent way too long adding parchment paper to. Oh yeah. I'm surprised I haven't made any mess yet. And here's a bonus extra step for me because I completely forgot to add in the plain Greek yogurt, so I had to re-pour and mix everything. Oh crap. The damage has been assessed. Next, I place it in the oven at 355 degrees Fahrenheit for 25 minutes. Now while that's in the oven, you might be asking why I decided to do this. And the thing is, a close friend of mine invited me over tonight to watch her favorite TV show, The Bear, and to bring dessert, but there's a catch. She's on a diet, so wants it to be healthy while also tasting exactly like an unhealthy one because desserts are the only thing in this world that continue to fuel her will to exist. She can be a bit dramatic sometimes. So I have approximately 2 hours to bake and try all of these out and come up with a winner before dinner. Now I did order a secret item that should make all of this a lot easier. While we wait for that to come in, let's go taste our brownie. So I don't know if I did something wrong, but towards the edges it got a lot drier. Towards the middle, it was still a little bit more fudgy, so maybe I cooked it a little bit too long, but I got one close to the middle. So let's use that for the taste test. That actually tastes really good. So that middle part is super fudgy. It's really rich, really chocolatey. Doesn't taste like typical protein brownie as long as you get that kind of fudgy part there. Here are the total calories and macro breakdown for these brownies. And given that, the taste, and the preparation, I'd probably put this at a B tier. On to the next. 0 calorie Oreos. Yeah, you heard that right, 0 calories. As someone who loves Oreos but hates that a serving size is only 3 cookies, I was beyond excited to try these. For the recipe, we take 8 grams of oat fiber, 2 grams of black cocoa powder, which isn't the same as the typical cocoa powder, a pinch of salt, we mix these together and then have to add the tiniest drop of water. This was extremely stressful because apparently if you go over the amount of water, the entire recipe is ruined. I love a bit of additional anxiety added to my recipes. After carefully adding in my water, I had something kind of resembling Oreo dough. I molded it into Oreo-shaped cookies and put it in the oven at 250 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes. I also panicked slightly as I noticed I didn't consider all the baking time when deciding to do all this. But in order to take advantage of the time, while that's baking, I started on the icing, which is 15 grams of sweetener mixed with another tiny precise dot of almond milk. And again, if you overdo it, the cream will be too runny and not work. Yay. More anxiety. After what felt like a surgical procedure with the weird ingredients and precise drops, I had this, which kind of looks like Oreos, right? But let's see how it tastes. I'm throwing this out. That made me mad. That is disgusting. That is nasty. That tastes like, it doesn't taste edible. It tastes like plastic. Like I shouldn't eat this. That goes without saying, that definitely is an F tier. I would never make that again. Don't make this, don't try this, don't buy these ingredients. I don't know what the heck I'm supposed to do with all this oat fiber now. Just eat some Oreos. Don't do this, don't try this. This is a strawberry yogurt chocolate cluster. My expectations for these are pretty low. Don't get me wrong, I love everything in this, but it feels like one of those desserts that people lie about, saying they prefer it to an actual chocolate chip cookie. Anyways, the ingredients for these are pretty simple. With 1 cup of diced strawberries. I just found a strawberry with a freaking hole inside of it. What? Did this strawberry eat the other strawberry? 170 grams of Greek yogurt, 45 grams of melted chocolate chips. I started by chopping strawberries, adding them into vanilla Greek yogurt, mixing, and then spraying them into 3 medium-sized discs on a baking sheet lined with parchment paper, which again took me longer than I want to admit. Oh, is there a hair in there? Yeah. Don't tell anyone. These then have to go into the freezer a bit until they're solid, which freaked me out again because I forgot to account for all this freezing and baking time when doing these recipes. But luckily, while I placed those in the freezer, I finally got the message I had been waiting for all day. My package had arrived. So that only means one thing. Time for a cinematic montage. Coming through. Corner. Corner, chef. Corner.
Hands. I need hands. I need hands.
So in case you hadn't guessed, the secret item was the Ninja Creamy right over here, which helped me make these protein ice creams. We have a Fruity Pebbles. This was a cookie butter ice cream. And then this was a cosmic brownie. These are the macros for each. That's an insane amount of protein. So I can eat this entire tub of ice cream and that's gonna be the macros. Now, preparation for these, it was also pretty simple. The only annoying part is you have to do it 24 hours in advance, so it's just throw in all the ingredients into this tub, pop it in the freezer for 24 hours. This lid comes off, you put this in here, close it, turn it on, and then you mix in your stuff. This isn't a promo for the Ninja Creamy, but this is one of the items that had showed up the most online, so I decided to pull the plug and try it out. Now let's give these a taste test and see what they rank. It's filled with Fruity Pebbles, which is the best cereal in existence. If you don't agree, you're wrong. Let's try it out. Oh my God. It literally tastes like a bowl of Fruity Pebbles. That's amazing, delicious. Look at that right there. That's amazing as well. I can't believe I could eat that whole thing. Break up some pieces of the cookie. Wow. So when it comes to taste, macros, and prep, I'm gonna give this one an S tier. I'd make this every day, honestly. Oh, brain freeze. But now that we've tried these, time is running out, so let's get going. Here we got our strawberry yogurt concoction that we'd made earlier. I don't know what these are called, but these are my favorite things ever. And in Spanish, we call them lengua de gato. They're the best. Kind of place them in the chocolate, I guess, and coat them. Oh God, this is melting. Oh God, this is a disaster. Okay, this melted completely in here. I don't know if it was supposed to be colder or this was supposed to be warmer. This is what happens when a TikTok tries to be 10 freaking seconds long and give you an entire recipe. I hate the internet sometimes, man. I wasn't able to get all the other ones coated, but I thought at least I'd try one of them and see if it's worth it. If anything, I could just keep these in the freezer and then just like coat them whenever I need to. But this is what it looks like. All right, let's give this a taste test and see if it's actually any good. That's a lot better than I thought it was gonna be. These are the rough macros for each one on the screen right here. Based off these, the preparation, which was honestly pretty easy, is just throwing a couple stuff together and then dipping it in chocolate and pop it in the freezer. The wait's not too long. And then the taste is amazing. It's a really good taste. These are a solid A tier. They're not an S tier because this doesn't taste like a non
protein dessert. For me, S tier is something like I prefer this almost to a non-protein or non-healthy dessert. If I eat this, I know I'm just eating a healthier alternative. And if I'm really craving like a baked good or something really unhealthy, I don't think this would substitute it. High protein Rice Krispies. This sounds promising, so let's see.
I've always wanted to hear the famous snack, crackle, and pop these apparently make when cooking. So when I saw this recipe, the kid in me was pretty excited. I started by adding 28 grams of butter, 50 grams of 2% high protein milk, 4 grams of vanilla extract, and 1 gram of salt. I added these into a pot over medium-high heat on the stovetop, and after that melted, I mixed it up a bit and added in the key ingredient to make these lower calorie. And it's these Maxmellows, which replace the normal marshmallows. Not gonna lie, these were a bit hard to find, also not the cheapest ingredient, but without them, the recipe isn't gonna be the best. I mixed on higher heat with a wooden spoon for about 90 seconds until everything was melted together. I took it off the heat and added my 3 scoops of vanilla protein and mixed until all the clumps were gone. And finally, the moment I had been waiting for. Time to add in my Rice Krispies and wait for the snack, crackle, and pop. Like it's supposed to. And I heard nothing. Maybe my whole childhood was a lie, but I couldn't let that get to me because the clock was ticking and I still had a bunch of recipes to go before dinner. So I finished mixing, put these in a pan to get them shaped, and then proceeded to go absolutely feral on it trying to get them out. And this was the final result. And they actually look like Rice Krispies, but do they taste like them?
Please, Rice Krispie, don't let me down. Don't be like the Oreo. Get out. This is pretty darn good. If you divide it into 9 equal pieces, these are gonna be the total calories and macro breakdown for each piece. And going off of those numbers, taste and preparation, as the marshmallows are kind of hard to find. You have to order those on Amazon, so it makes it a little bit more difficult to make, and you have to use 2 whole bags of it. They're kind of pricey. Yeah, so just because of that, they're gonna be a high A tier, but almost S tier. I might come back to that. I might actually come back to that. Definitely would recommend making these. I'm gonna finish this and let's move on to the next one. Cottage cheese cheesecake.
Cheesecakes are one of the most popular desserts of all time. So if I can find a recipe that tastes like cheesecake and also gets me closer to my protein goal without using any protein powder at all, it has to be S tier.
Before throwing the crust in there, I need to line it with more of the parchment paper. I saw a hack for parchment paper to get it perfectly round. Woo, that was a clean rip. Let's see if I can make it work. I don't know if this was it or if this was a paper airplane video I saw. I can't even tell these days. I feel like it was something like this. You cut around it. And then this is supposed to... Oh, this looks like it might be right. Ooh, that was so freaking cool. I can't believe I remember that. I feel like a pro chef, a pro baker right now. If you didn't learn anything this video, you learned how to do that. Hopefully. I don't know if I can recreate it. So
we start with the crust, which is going to be 45 grams of graham crackers mixed with half a tablespoon of melted butter. Also, here's another bonus step I did because I read the ingredient list wrong again and didn't use enough graham crackers. But I've come to accept that's just part of who I am as a person. After adding in the right amount of graham crackers, the next step is the one that absolutely derailed my entire timeline. Sounds simple enough, but unfortunately, I'm a recovering perfectionist, and the next time I looked up, about 20 minutes had gone by. So after a mini panic attack, I put my crust in the oven at 375 for 10 to 12 minutes and moved on to the main body of the cheesecake. For this, I took 1 large whole egg, half a cup of cottage cheese, half a teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1 tablespoon of sweetener, 1 tablespoon of Greek yogurt, and threw it in a blender. Ran it on high, and then poured it on top of the baked crust.
So now let's pop this in the oven and let's see how it goes.
Again, highlighting my absolute lack of planning, I didn't notice that this then takes hours chilling in the fridge before it's ready. So let's see how long we can let it cool and save the taste test for later and move on to
high protein cinnamon rolls.
The smell of fresh cinnamon rolls is top 3 smells in all of existence, and apparently this recipe gives that while also packing in some protein and only needing an air fryer. I started with the dough by taking 1/4 cups of self-raising flour, 1/4 cup of vanilla protein powder made for baking, 1 cup of non-fat plain Greek yogurt, and 2 tablespoons of sweetener. This is how someone told me I'm supposed to flour my surface before kneading dough, so here's my initial attempt before dumping the entire bag because I felt like it wasn't enough flour. I then kneaded the dough until it wasn't sticky and rolled it into a square-ish shape with a bottle of adult grape juice because I noticed last minute that I didn't have a rolling pin. It's called innovation. For the filling, I took 2 tablespoons of melted light butter, 1/4 cup of brown sugar sweetener, and 1 tablespoon of cinnamon. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to mix these together or just add them one by one because the 15-second TikTok video didn't explain and instead she was just staring at me the whole time. So I just opted for kind of doing both. I then cut those into non-uniform pieces because I didn't know what thickness would be best. Brushed the top with some melted butter I had left over and popped them in the air fryer for 375 for 7 minutes. While those were cooking, it was glaze time. I don't know why I said it like that. And it's just powdered sweetener mixed with a tiny bit of Greek yogurt. I almost ate this bowl by itself, but right as I was about to do that, the cinnamon rolls were ready and it was time for a taste test.
Okay, this smells amazing. And it looks pretty good too. It has all the layers. It has like what you like about cinnamon rolls where the outside is crunchy and then that middle roll is like the best bite you can ever have in your life. This is gonna be an A tier. This is gonna be an A tier. If it was based off of taste alone, it's gonna be S tier. But just because it has some other factors, like again, you have to find that baker-friendly protein powder and the preparation isn't the easiest, that knocks it down a little bit, so it's not exactly S tier. But if it were taste alone, this would be an S tier. I'll probably make these again.
Chocolate chip cookies. It's no secret that a warm chocolate chip cookie is my favorite dessert of all time. But anytime I see a protein version, they just look like small dry pancakes. Apparently this recipe is the only one I could find that gives you actual chewy chocolate chip cookies and only 44 calories each. I have my doubts, but I do have a backup plan just in case. First, I started with mixing the dry ingredients. 60 grams of whey casein blend vanilla protein, 40 grams of PB party protein cookie butter powder, which I substituted for PB2 powder because I couldn't find it anywhere, 30 grams of all-purpose flour, 20 grams of almond flour, 10 grams of coconut flour, 5 grams of sweetener, 4 grams of baking soda, and a pinch of salt. I think this is the most amount of ingredients I've ever seen for a cookie.
Now, supposedly this recipe is super specific and if you change anything, you won't get the right results. And I changed a couple things because I didn't have them, so we'll see if this works out.
After mixing the dry ingredients, I added 100 grams of plain non-fat Greek yogurt, 60 grams of sugar-free maple syrup, 2 large eggs, and some chocolate chips. And after adding in those wet ingredients, things were not looking good. It looked more like a milkshake than cookie batter. I knew this was far from scoopable, so I did the only thing I could and just kept adding more dry ingredients to see if it would thicken up. But no matter how much protein, almond flour, coconut flour, or extra sweetener I added, nothing was working.
Seems nothing that I can do to this makes it cookie batter consistency. Like it just looks like this slimy blob.
So my last resort was to pop these in the freezer for a bit to see if they would settle and whip up the backup plan, which were pre-made cookies.
Don't judge me. I know this is a recipe video.
But honestly, I've heard a lot about these sweet Lorens and it's kind of like baking too. Prep is literally just taking them out of the package and placing them on a cookie sheet and then placing them in the oven. While they're in the oven, I took out my original batter from the freezer and scooped it out. I quickly realized that the freezer barely did anything, but hey, these kind of look like cookies and maybe this is how new recipes are made. Maybe I've just discovered a new groundbreaking, delicious chocolate chip cookie that no one's ever made before. These look absolutely terrible. But with time literally running out, all I could do was taste them and hope for the best.
I'm scared to try this, honestly. I've never been more disappointed in my entire life, and my expectations were already so low. These are the pre-made chocolate chip cookies. They've now had some time to settle. They look like normal chocolate chip cookies, and they were super easy to make. So give it a taste test. These are the macros, these are the calories and macro breakdowns over here. Yeah, so apparently they're plant-based, gluten-free, dairy-free, and peanut and tree nut-free. So I've never had an issue with any of those things, but for someone that does, these could be a really good alternative and they still taste amazingly. Like I'm surprised now that I read the packaging. That being said, when it comes to my specific goals and being high protein, it's not the best macros. Given the ease of preparation, the taste, and the overall macros, I think this is a solid B.
After wrapping those up, I didn't have any more time to leave the cheesecake in the fridge, so it was time to taste that too.
In cheesecake, I added a little bit of melted peanut butter on top as well. I saw a hack about getting this out cleanly, so let's give that a try. And it involves this hair dryer. So apparently you just grab this and go around the edges. That wasn't that bad. So we got our cheesecake right here. The consistency looks really good. Ooh, look at that. I'm gonna try some of that middle without the peanut butter. These are the macros per piece right here. If you cut it into 6 even slices. As for overall rank, I think I'd give it a C. Even though it is really good, I feel like it does take a long time to prepare. If I'm gonna spend that much time making something, then it either has to be the actual dessert that I'm craving or taste better or exactly like that unhealthy alternative. So after the ranking, ice cream came out to be the only S tier dessert. I thought showing up with just ice cream was a cop-out, so I decided to try one more brownie recipe. Brownies, also my friend's favorite dessert, and the plan was to serve it warm with some cookie butter ice cream on top. Now this might be a huge mistake, but I'm actually not even gonna try this one out before serving and trust that it will live up to expectations. And finally was the moment of truth. Time for my friend to taste the final dessert and see if she approves. Also, I don't know if this makes it better or worse, but my secret friend happens to be my partner Tamaris. Which you might think relieves some of the pressure of making dessert, but she's absolutely brutal when it comes to her reviews, so I'm actually more scared than if it was a normal person. So let's see how it goes.